ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. You know, elevations were very important in antiquity during war and at any other time. For instance, the Jewish month was declared in Jerusalem. How did the rest of the population know that the new month is there? They would light on top of mountains, fires from one mountain to another, and this way throughout Israel they'd know immediately when was Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month. On the other hand, the Jews that lived in Babylon or that lived very far away didn't see those fires, so therefore sometimes they were even in doubt as to when Rosh Chodesh is. This is why we have a double day of holidays outside of Israel. This is the origin of it. Even though later on calendar was established and there was no longer any doubt, we continue with the tradition of our ancestors. But mountains in Jewish tradition have a very important significance. Two of them I want to talk about today in particular. One is Mount Moriah. This is the Temple Mount. Right now there's a mosque there. That's where the Beit HaMikdash had been erected by King Solomon. And when it was destroyed by the Assyrians, a new one was built in the same spot. And with the help of God, the third Beit HaMikdash somehow miraculously will be built in the same spot. It has to be built in that spot. That was the spot that God designated for the building of the Beit HaMikdash. Why was that spot designated? Maybe also because it's the same place where Abraham was willing to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice. And also it showed also where man was willing to give of himself. That's very important. And this is why maybe God chose that mountain for the Beit HaMikdash, because the Beit HaMikdash is supposed to elevate us, bring us closer to God. That's the word korban. Korban comes from the root lekarev. You have to get closer to God. You get closer to God through sacrifices. We get closer to God through our prayers. But that is the idea. And the other mountain, of course, is Mount Sinai, where God revealed his will, where the Ten Commandments were given. So here you have two mountains that are very important. Sinai and Mount Moriah. But there's a difference I'd like to point out. Are you allowed to touch Mount Sinai? Well, when our ancestors were in the desert, they were told, don't get close to the mountain. Moses alone went up on the mountain, received the law. They weren't allowed to touch the mountain. What about today? Can you touch Mount Sinai? Well, we have a problem with identifying Mount Sinai. We don't know exactly which one is Mount Sinai, but there's no problem with touching Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is not holy anymore. It was holy for a while when God revealed his will. God, so to speak, contracted himself, descended onto Mount Sinai and communicated directly with humanity. While God was there, it was holy. But once he delivered the message to humanity, you can walk, touch it, throw a stone, you can do anything you want in Mount Sinai. But when it comes to Mount Moriah, it's not so. It has holiness to this very day. This is one of the problems why Jews cannot go to the Temple Mount. They really shouldn't go to the vicinity of the mosque because we are in a state of impurity today, ritual impurity. And in order to ascend the mount where the temple was, you have to be in a certain situation. And we are not in that quality. We don't have that quality of purity today in order to do it. So what's the difference between that? One you can touch, you can do whatever you want. The other one you can't touch. Well, because in Mount Sinai, we do not expect a new set of laws from God. It doesn't have to be holy anymore. God gave us already, told us what his will is, that's it. Mount Moriah is different because that is where the temple has to be rebuilt. That shows that we have to come closer to God at all times. We are not finished with Mount Moriah. With Mount Sinai, we're finished. But with Mount Moriah, we're not. And so it is in our lives. There are certain events that we can actually leave in the past. We learned from that, and that's it. It serves us as an example. But other things that are ongoing processes. I remember once, there was a member of my community in Caracas who had 2 sons. They were a little older than my 3 sons, a little bit older. And at a certain point, his 2 sons were married already, and none of my 3 sons were married yet. So I told him, lucky you. You already fulfilled your obligation with your sons. I still have to marry off 3 sons. I remember what he told me, Rabbi, with time you will learn that even when your sons get married, you still have to worry about them. It isn't over yet. There is no such thing as saying, Baruch sheptarani me'onsho shel hazeh. Thank God I'm no longer responsible. There are certain events in life that are continuous. Your relationship with your sons, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your grandchildren, with your friends, these are continuous things. You are never fully finished with any of them. So maybe that is what Mount Moriah teaches us. There are events in life that one has to continuously feed and take care of, because otherwise they deteriorate. On the other hand, there are certain events, once they've taken place, there they are, and you have them forever. Make sure you know how to differentiate between the 2 of them, and you'll be a very wise man.